Please join me in welcoming Her Excellency Vjosa Osmani, President of the Republic of Kosovo, to join me on stage. Hello. Good to see you again. President Osmani, İstanbul'a hoş geldiniz tekrar. I know you speak a little bit of Turkish.
Çok teşekkür ederim. Hoş bulduk. Teşekkürler.
I've told you, she's an excellent woman that speaks a lot of
Pratik etmem lazım. Hala öğreniyorum ama iyi gidiyor.
Çok iyi, çok iyi Cumhurbaşkanı. Madam President, we've heard the previous session. A lot has happened since the last time we spoke. And just a couple of days before Hamas's attack, Kosovo was exactly in the center of international attention. On September 24th, a very quiet village in the northern part of your country turned into a war zone in just a couple of hours. The world was in shock. I remember the headlines, I remember the shock in the eyes of my colleagues who covered the story. But Madam President, you warned about these types of attacks, but it seems to me that no one was listening. Would you agree with me?
We've been really warning because the signs for a potential attack were there. Serbia has been training terrorist groups, paramilitary groups for quite some time. They have been giving them military-grade weapons for quite some time. They have been offering all of the political support for these terrorist and paramilitary groups for a very long time. And finally, if you listen to the rhetoric of the leaders of Serbia, it's warmongering rhetoric. They want to bring us all back to the 90s, where all of our regions suffered from that kind of mindset, where they want to see all of the countries around them as temporary states, which they want to destroy. And for that reason, of course, we did warn, because we know Serbia very well. We unfortunately had to learn it the very hard way. Even as we speak, thousands of our people, including women and children, are in massive graves in Serbia, and Serbia does not even accept to tell us the locations, to tell us or the international community the locations of these massive graves where little kids had been killed and now are there, so that mothers can have a place where to lay a flower after 25 years after the war. So, of course, we're still facing a Serbia that is a continuation of the Milosevic mentality. We heard President Erdogan today speak about Milosevic and the atrocities that he committed. But of course, it is precisely Milosevic's Minister of Propaganda that is still leading Serbia, not just him physically speaking, but also as a mentality, talking about the greater Serbia idea, where he constantly attacks Kosovo, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and other countries in the region. Many, of course, among our partners believed that because Vučić is speaking about peace, that he would not resort to war. But as we all know, he never walks the talk. In the leadership of Serbia, they do talk about peace, but every single action that they undertake is to destroy the hard-won peace, which we have achieved with the support of so many. So what happened on the 24th of September was a culmination of a policy that existed in Serbia for quite some time, especially in the past decade or so, where they don't give up on a hegemonic idea that the rest of the region belongs to them. Of course, it does not. And Kosovo is independent, it's sovereign, it's a democratic republic, and will forever remain so, no matter how much Serbia wants to destabilize it.
It is, but still remains one of the region's hotspots, especially, as I mentioned, that attack in the northern part of the country. We've heard throughout the day how political landscape is fast changing, how new alliances have been created in the last couple of months. What danger does that represent to the Balkans, as this is the region that is often compared to the Middle East, as one of the possible frozen conflicts that could just escalate any time. What should be...
If an active appeasement policy towards Serbia continues, if a Serbia-centered policy continues, obviously there's a big danger for escalation in the entire region. Because look, you're talking about a small village, but in fact the intention of those paramilitary groups was never the village, it was to annex the entire north of Kosovo. And as we know, if they would go forward, we would respond. And when we would respond, as you know, the region as such responds, because it never ends only with Kosovo. Our region is so connected that instability in one country means instability in all of us, and it never ends only with one country, and that's exactly what Serbia wants. But for way too long, there's been this active appeasement policy, just ignoring what Vučić does and just listening to what he says. And for that reason, I think we're in an extremely dangerous situation. And right now, the focus of everyone, be it ours in the region or of our allies and partners, should be prevention and deterrence. How do we deter Serbia? How do we prevent Serbia from attacking again and from spiraling up violence, which will not, of course, spare anyone in the region? And the answer is very clear. Serbia understands only NATO power. They need to understand that NATO's power will be used if they go crazy again. And secondly, there must be specific measures from the European Union, more precisely from the European Commission, because it doesn't allow for the veto power of anyone from the member states, that are financial in nature. Otherwise, Vučić brags about how, despite of everything he does, still he gets over 60% of the EU support that is dedicated to the Western Balkans. As long as he uses violence, destroys good neighborly relations, is not aligned with EU foreign and security policy, but still gets the EU money, of course the message that he understands is that he should do it again and again and again.
But who are Kosovo's allies in all this? We know that NATO sent hundreds of additional troops to the border between Kosovo and Serbia, among them also Turkish reinforcements. Who were your main allies following that attack in Banjska?
It was the exact same countries that were our allies back in 1999 when we were endangered to get exterminated, but helped us get our freedom. It was exactly the same allies that helped us get independence. Exactly those same countries. It was the United States of America, it was Turkey, it was members of the European Union, it was democratic countries all around the world. Immediately after that attack, we worked very closely with KFOR, with ULEX and countries big and small from different continents to make sure that we can control the border so that they cannot repeat the attacks. And as you rightly pointed out, there have been reinforcements, including from Turkey, that are doing an excellent job, led by a Turkish commander now, to make sure that these attacks don't happen again. So we are working with our allies to make sure, as I said, that prevention and deterrence happens, because we need to make sure that we don't only talk or undertake measures post festum after the attack actually happens. This time we were lucky enough because our police, which is the most professional in our region, reacted immediately in the very first few minutes of the attack and were able to thwart it. But that doesn't mean that Vučić is not going to go even bigger and stronger in terms of the next attack unless there are measures undertaken against him. And of course, we're working with partners to make sure that this does not happen.
Serbia is heading towards elections in just a couple of days. Those are snap elections called right after the talks between Pristina and Belgrade have failed. Polls have been showing that Vučić is not likely to be challenged on the presidential level. Does this mean while he is in office, there will not be progress when it comes to the peace in the region, especially when it comes to the talks between Kosovo and Serbia?
We have very little hope that with Vučić in power, peace can become a long-lasting reality in our region. And we base it on his actions rather than his words. His actions in the past decade or so have shown that he has brought the region more turmoil and more instability. And while he does talk about European integration, in fact, he has brought the country from a 96% alignment to a 40-something% alignment in terms of EU. So it doesn't seem like the EU integration is interesting for him any longer. He's growing closer to Russia. And of course, that is making him go more aggressive towards neighbors in the region. That doesn't mean that we will not continue to actively engage in the dialogue, that we will not be constructive, quite the opposite. We will continue to be the only constructive party in this dialogue, because we see that that's the only way to resolve any dispute. Nevertheless, that doesn't mean that we should stay quiet whenever Serbia violates every single principle and criteria of good neighborly relations.
Serbia denies any involvement in the attack in Banjska, Madam President, but you and the Prime Minister Kurti have been very vocal when it comes to this. Just yesterday, Interpol issued a warrant for Kosovar Serb who, in connection with that attack. What proof do you have that Belgrade was involved in creating this unrest in the north of your country?
There's enormous proof, and it's not just the investigation of our country that has come to this conclusion, but also the investigation of some NATO member countries, which has been shared with the rest, shows that there's only one address from which this attack came, and that is the state of Serbia. These were not just a bunch of men that decided one beautiful morning to attack a neighboring country. Quite the opposite. There was plenty of training happening for a couple of months before the attack in Serbia's army. Secondly, all of the weapons that were confiscated were produced by Serbia's army. Thirdly, they have been financing, and they don't even hide it. So there are official decisions through which Serbia pays these terrorist and paramilitary groups. And finally, it's all of the political support that they have been giving to this group during the attack, before, during the attack, and also after the attack. The terrorists that committed the attack against Kosovo are free men in Serbia, and quite the opposite. Instead of being arrested, they are hailed as heroes. So there is, of course, an abundance of extremely strong evidence about Serbia carrying out this attack. So I don't think anyone in their sane mind actually believes Serbia that they have nothing to do with it, because the evidence is really there and is very strong.
When you gave your first interview for Across the Balkans, it was quoted that you've said that you wish that NATO and the EU, you urged NATO and the EU to speed up the process for Bosnia and Kosovo as well in the wake of the war in Ukraine. I remember we had this similar conversation a couple of weeks after the war in Ukraine started. Not much has changed, Madam President, since the last time we spoke. Unfortunately, for my own home country, Bosnia, or for your country, Kosovo. Are you optimistic for the future of the region, and specifically for those two countries, as we haven't seen many positive messages coming from Brussels in the last couple of weeks, except promises about investments, economy, which is all fine, but we are dealing with a massive political deadlock, especially in Bosnia, and then Kosovo is dealing with the massive issues at its border with Serbia.
Look, we have no other choice but to be optimistic. We must be optimistic no matter the challenges. Both Kosovo and Bosnia-Herzegovina went through immense hurdles on their way towards independence, and then after independence in our state-building efforts, in strengthening our statehood, and in our Euro-Atlantic path. But you are right, we haven't really seen real progress. When I talk to partners, I try to make the case for the geostrategic urgency of making both Kosovo and Bosnia-Herzegovina members of NATO, because while the EU is really a complex and long process, NATO can move faster. And it is more urgent for NATO to move faster because I think it is deeply in Russia's interest to make sure that they open a new front against the West. And they, of course, they will try to do this in the Western Balkans as well. And where would they try to do it? They would try to do it in countries that are not NATO member states. because then Article 5 would not be invoked. So for that reason, the bigger the urgency of making Kosovo and Bosnia-Herzegovina members of NATO, the more stability and security there will be in our region. With Albania, North Macedonia, and Montenegro joining NATO, all of us have become more secure and safer. So I think this is the way forward for anyone that wants stability and long-term peace in the Western Balkans. They need to make important steps to bringing our countries closer to NATO. And we are very grateful for the support of Turkey in this regard. President Erdogan has been very vocal since day one about the necessity for both our countries to join.
Madam President, I was recently in the region, and whenever I mention your name, they say they admire how much you work to put Kosovo always in the spotlight, not just after September attack, but even before. You're really working hard to get more and more countries recognize Kosovo. Any progress when it comes to that? Can we expect more countries to recognize Pristina?
We are certainly getting some important promises, but of course this is an individual and sovereign decision of each country, and we are trying to respect their internal processes and procedures. We are offering them all of the arguments they need. We're doing all of the paperwork that is necessary. Some need additional information. We're visiting these countries. Many of the leaders that I meet, many from non-recognizers, we don't even make them public at first because we don't want to put them in a position of pressure from other factors. So we really respect these countries, but it is about time that they recognize the irreversible reality of Kosovo's independence. Look, no one has lost anything from recognizing Kosovo. Has Turkey lost anything from recognizing Kosovo's independence? Quite the opposite. We are close friends, close partners, close allies. We support each other. So what they would be losing is nothing. What they would be gaining is a committed partner, a country that, no matter our small size, actually have an important story to tell and an important contribution to make to global peace and security. So there is an enormous potential for cooperation with many of these countries, whether in economy or culture or other areas, and we are seeking to explore these opportunities. But of course, the first step is recognizing. This is not just about recognizing our independence, it's about recognizing a people's struggle to be free. We were occupied for centuries, but we never lost our language, our identity. We never stopped fighting for our freedom, because there's nothing that can stand on the way of a people that wants to be free. So by recognizing the independence of Kosovo, they would be recognizing this centuries-long struggle and sacrifice of the people of Kosovo. And I do hope that as many countries as possible will do that.
You mentioned briefly your cooperation with Turkey. I want to go back to that as we are here in beautiful Istanbul. You've met President Erdogan today. Turkey has great relations with Belgrade and with Pristina both. We have seen, and I've mentioned it, EU talks have failed several times, despite a massive effort from, I would say, both sides. Can Turkey mediate between Belgrade and Pristina? Would you be open to that type of cooperation or possible talks?
The president of Turkey has been playing an important role for peace and security in our region. And as I have stated many times before, I think the fact that he has good relations with every country in the Western Balkans and has a positive influence in each and every country can help. So I do hope that whenever he has talks with Serbia, the issue of long-term stability and peace in our region will be brought up, and I know it will, because it is in Turkey's deep interest, given their contribution, to make sure that peace endures, because everyone has contributed for this peace, including Turkey. We have Turkish soldiers serving in Kosovo for so long. Turkey was involved in in the NATO bombings of 1999, which saved our lives and saved our country from extermination. And for that reason, I think to save this peace, to safeguard this peace that was achieved with so much sacrifice, is the duty of us all. So I think Turkey can play an important role in encouraging Serbia to stop attacking its neighbors and simply accepting a reality that is not going to change. Kosovo is there to stay as an independent country. Bosnia-Herzegovina is there to stay as an independent country. Montenegro is there to stay as an independent country. And so are the rest of the republics. So I think Serbia should choose to move forward rather than trying to drag everyone in the region backwards.
I want to ask you at the end, and I want to finish on a positive note, this interview. It's been a long day. We've discussed many depressing issues. Talking about the Balkans in this time of the night, I think it's really challenging, as it's one of the most complicated parts of Europe. Madam President, what keeps you going, and what do you want your legacy to be? You've done an amazing work when it comes to your diplomatic activities and promoting Kosovo. Since I've become journalist and since you came to power, I get to know more about Kosovo's women, about Kosovo's men, young people. And to be honest, it was mostly because of you. What keeps you going?
It's the young people of Kosovo. I don't want them to go through what we had to go through. You know, we grew up as children of war.
Yeah, me and you both.
Both of us, we grew up as children of war, and we know very much how that is like. Every single day, you know, watching the news about the war in Bosnia and thinking, will we be next? What will we do when they come in and take us out of our place, our home? What will we do when they come to kill us? What will we do when they come to bomb us? What will we do when they burn down our house? I don't want the kids of Kosovo, the young people of Kosovo, to grow up thinking every day how to survive because your neighbor wants to kill you. And because of them, every piece of work, every single effort, every sacrifice is worth it, just to make sure that no one living in Kosovo or in the region, no matter their nationality, no matter their religion, has to go through what we have to go through. And you know, working on maintaining peace when you have such challenges from your neighbor is an extremely difficult work. But despite of that, every bit of our effort needs to be concentrated into that, because the rest can come. Economic development, creating new jobs, better education system, better health services, all of that is possible when you live in peace. But none of that is possible when you don't have peace. And for that reason, that's what keeps us all going, I would say, in Kosovo, and anyone else that has known the opposite of peace, which is destruction, it's suffering, it's war. So because we have known the opposite of peace, we need to make sure that we never stop working for it and working to maintain it.
And let's just hope that peace won't be challenged in the what's to come, as we've seen so many changes. Madam President, thank you so much.
Thank you
for talking to me again. I always enjoy talking to this wonderful Balkan woman. Çok teşekkür ederim.
Ben teşekkür ederim.
And thank you all for staying this late. I'm sorry again for starting a bit late with this exclusive session. Thank you. That will be all for the first day of TRT World's Forum. We'll continue tomorrow with excellent sessions. Also, one will be on the Balkans, so whoever's interested, you should check the schedule. Thank you all once again. Thank you so much. Always. Thank you. Yes, 5 months ago.